I'm Barron. Kate Gordon Brewer, BBC News, Tokyo.
11 hours Greenwich Mean Time. BBC World Service. News.
Probably tanks in that direction also.
All over the world, there are people for whom the BBC's World Service radio broadcasts are a crucial source of information. A beacon of impartiality in a world where sometimes the truth can be hard to find. Today marks the climax of a project which is one of the most exciting in world broadcasting. It's called World Service Television, and it's been achieved thanks to a partnership with a Hong Kong-based company, Hutchvision. It's the combination of years of planning, yet it has come together in just a few short months. BBC World Service Television, a 24-hour news and information service combining the best of BBC television and World Service radio. And today sees the very first transmission of this unique service delivered to the people of Asia by the BBC's partner, Hutchvision, owners of Star TV's satellite, AsiaSat-1. This satellite has a potential audience of 2.5 billion people, more than half the population of the world. To mark the occasion, Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal has agreed to join us and our audience of over 200 specially invited guests to inaugurate the new service. Well, just a few moments ago, Her Royal Highness arrived here in London's Piccadilly. Bruce Hamill describes the scene.
BAFTA was greeted by Princess Royal, greeted by Tony Byrne, BAFTA's director, and introduced to the man in charge of BBC World Service Television, Chief Executive Christopher Irwin. Well, earlier the Governor of Hong Kong, Sir David Wilson, arrived to take part in this significant event for Hong Kong. He was in fact the first of the distinguished guests to be introduced to Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal. Alongside him, the Director General of the BBC, Mr. Michael Checkland. Then from Hong Kong, Simon Murray, Group Managing Director of Hutchinson Whampoa, John Tutor, Managing Director, BBC World Service, Christabel King, World Service TV newsreader, James Arnold Baker, Chief Executive of BBC Enterprises, and BBC World Service TV's Director of Programming, Hugh Williams, along with Jeff Hazel, Director of Sales and Distribution. So just how important is today's event to the people from the world of broadcasting and politics?
What's very important to Hong Kong is to be a centre of information and news. We are one of the major trading territories in the world. So to be a centre where we get news from all around the world, news and comment, is something which is very important to us as a trading territory. And to be associated with this project, to have a Hong Kong company helping the BBC with this major project, is just what one likes to see, Hong Kong playing its role as a centre of communications in East Asia. That's exactly what Hong Kong's role should be.
I think it's obviously very exciting for us. There are 2.5 billion people living in the footprint that we cover. There's a great thirst for information, for entertainment. There's a great lack today of television programming, quality television programming in Asia. So big demand, lots of people, and I think what we're doing here with BBC, bringing quality programming to Asia, is going to be very profitable, beneficial to us, and of course to the people who watch the programs.
I think it's very important for the BBC to be a global player, to play on its strengths in world service in radio and now move it into television. We can combine the editorial strengths of the world service with all the news gathering infrastructure of our domestic services, and we'll be a very powerful competitor. It's important for Britain and important for the BBC.
Well, it's an enormously important day for the World Service. It means we now get to our audience both in radio and in television. I think it means we get to them with a new means, we will get to a new audience, and we're the only major international broadcaster who will have a 24-hour service both on radio and on television. This gives us a fantastic competitive advantage. We'll be good, we'll use it, and the audience will find that they are delighted with it.
For those of us in the business of cultural relations, as the British Council is, this could be the single biggest breakthrough that we've seen since the war. That's how big the impact of this service could be in the region.
I think the new service will be of great importance in the business and financial world. London is, I believe, the leading financial centre in the world. Hong Kong is certainly number 3 or 4. And to link these two with World Service Television and link London and Hong Kong with the whole of Asia, I think is a great advance.
Well, the Princess Royal's long association with BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, means she's well versed in all the latest developments in the television industry. And no doubt today's guests are looking forward to hearing her views as she officially launches this brand new television service, Television for the World.
It's no secret that BBC World Service Television has been a revolution waiting to happen for some time. In the last few months, Hutch Vision have turned broadcasting in Asia upside down with the launch of a 5-channel, predominantly English-language satellite service. The aim is to provide quality programmes not seen before right across the continent. Their service, Star TV, offers a choice of music, sports, entertainment, and a Mandarin language channel.
Action, adventure, and the very best in entertainment.
But for news and information, they turn to a name with a worldwide reputation, BBC World Service. The tune's still Lily Bolero, but now it introduces World Service television news. From today, the updated version of the World Service theme will be beamed from London to Hong Kong via Intelsat 5, and then back up to AsiaSat 1. The satellite signal then reaches a footprint back on Earth that covers 36 countries, more than 2.5 billion people. This is what they'll see on the new service.
Good evening.
World News will go out on the hour from a new studio at Television Centre. It'll be read by established newsreaders like Pamela Armstrong, Lynette Lithgow, Jack Thompson and Christabel King. But it will be world news and not just the news from London. Then there'll be a bulletin of news from Asia, concentrating on important issues and stories throughout the region. There'll be world weather and news headlines, but this isn't only a news channel. It contains a mass of other information as well, all of it chosen from current BBC television programmes.
World Service Television News in Asia isn't simply a replaying of the best of the BBC's programmes. Many of its best programmes are there, of course. But the introduction of World Service Television News, and particularly the News for Asia, means that the whole schedule has been carefully tailored to suit an Asian audience.
Newsnight goes out twice a day for different time zones.
That's right, you can start your day with Newsnight. We'll bring you up to date with the very latest national and international news and analysis. So the Newsnight team and I are looking forward to helping you begin your news day right across Asia.
Joining the BBC's major daily news and current affairs programmes will be children's factual shows too.
Hi, my name's Yvette Fielding.
I'm John Leslie.
And I'm Diane Louise Jordan. Together we present Blue Peter, the most popular children's programme in Britain. We're delighted that Blue Peter will be part of BBC World Service Television.
Now children all over Asia can join the children of Britain in watching our programme and joining in all the fun.
So make a date every week with
Blue Peter!
And popular talk shows like Wogan will be shown as well.
Welcome. Hello, no, you can't get away from me. I'm Terry Wogan, and I'm delighted that soon you'll be able to watch Wogan 3 times a week right across Asia on BBC World Service Television. And I'll be delighted to see you.
A powerful lineup, and one which clearly persuaded Star TV to opt for the newest entrant into the World Television News Stakes. We're joined now from Hong Kong by Richard Lee, the Deputy Chairman of the Hutchinson Group, to explain why he put the BBC ahead of other already existing alternatives. Richard Lee, welcome. This must be a very important day for you.
Anna, this is an exciting day for all of us here at Star TV. We've completed another step in the realization of our project to broadcast a multi-channel, multilingual satellite television service across Asia and the Middle East of good quality international programming, providing more viewing choice for the region's viewers.
What did Hutchinson originally set out to do?
Well, it's Hutch Vision, I presume. Hutch Vision originally undertook to transmit 2 channels by the end of 1991, with 3 more being phased in by the end of 1992.
And when will you complete the service?
Well, today marks the advent of our 3rd channel, News 24 hours a day, while the 4th the Chinese channel, will commence broadcasting in less than 2 weeks' time. The 5th channel, our general entertainment channel, will go on air on the 15th of December, at which time we will be broadcasting the full complement of our 5-channel service over 38 nations more than 9 months ahead of our promised schedule with the Hong Kong government.
Richard Lee, live from Hong Kong. One of the most powerful aspects of this project is the marriage between the vast resources of BBC Television and the expertise and reputation of the BBC World Service. Brian Empringham now looks at what gives the World Service its special place in world broadcasting.
The world has seen unimaginable change in the past few years. But wherever news has been made, the BBC has been there to report it. And the World Service has given the people of countries in turmoil an insight into what's really happening to them.
Clashes between members of the security forces who are still loyal to the deposed president.
The World Service has almost seemed to be a part of events it was reporting. Only 2 months ago, the Soviet president relied on it while in detention in the Crimea.
Ловили BBC лучше всего.
The guys rigged up some aerials to the radio to receive anything they could. We received the BBC best of all.
I had a very special experience when there was an attempted coup d'etat against the Maldives in 1988, when I was trying to mount a relief operation, spoke with the BBC World Service on an interview, had it picked up by the president of the Maldives, who was then under siege by those who were staging the coup, and brought hope to him and reassurance. And that was a tremendous thing.
Coming up next, world news, followed by news about Britain. World Service has been bringing news and information to people across the globe for over half a century. From the Second World War to the end of the Cold War, they've tuned to BBC World Service because they felt they could trust it.
BBC Worldwide Service is that wonderful thing which you love at times and which you're furious with at times. And there have been times when the reporting makes everyone feel disappointed, and other times when it's looked upon as the only source of telling the truth. That in itself is a compliment to the BBC World Service, because it indicates that the news is objective.
Sometimes its policy of impartiality has been a thorn in the side not just of foreign governments, but of those at home as well. During the Suez Crisis in 1956, World Service resisted strong pressure from both Downing Street and the Foreign Office to play down the extent of opposition to the British government's handling of the crisis. 25 years later, it again demonstrated its ability to report independently on international events in which Britain was directly involved.
On their programs, it is our pride that we have no censorship. That is the essence of a free country. But we do expect the case for freedom to be put.
This is London.
The home of the BBC World Service is Bush House in the Strand in central London. Imposing from the outside, and inside a rabbit warren of offices and studios where the whole operation sometimes seems to be run by a handful of staff. It broadcasts in English and 36 foreign languages to an estimated 120 million listeners a week.
BBC London. इस समय भारत की घड़ियों में सुबह के 6:20 और यहाँ लंदन.
The Hindi service has a daily broadcast time of just under 2 hours, which is divided into 3 programs. We basically do news and current affairs, a roundup of the world events during the past 24 hours. And we have a large number of people, indeed, there are 35 million people listening to us in India. When Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated in October 1984, Rajiv Gandhi was in Calcutta. And as soon as he heard rumors that his mother had been attacked, he switched on to the BBC. We were very quick to broadcast the attack on Mrs. Gandhi, although it was several hours before the fact that she actually had died was confirmed.
World Service is often ahead of the rest of the world in getting the news and getting it right. During the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, it helped head off a direct confrontation between the United States and the USSR by monitoring Moscow. Listening in to foreign radio and TV all over the world is what goes on at its monitoring service at Caversham. The BBC is the only broadcaster in the world that does this, and it put them a step ahead during the coup in Moscow 8 weeks ago.
Bridget Kendall, BBC, Moscow.
About 30 seconds.
What's happening now is that all these resources are teaming up with the technology and efficiency of the machine that every day produces BBC television news.
Run titles.
Between them, they'll be able to call on a unique network of correspondents and bureaus across the globe.
What we're bringing to this is 60 years of experience in international journalism. I don't think that the main thing in international broadcasting is just to be there as it happens, but it's to provide the analysis, the depth of coverage, the extent of understanding that the BBC, with more than 200 correspondents and 50 bureaus worldwide, can bring.
The result is a service capable of covering news events anywhere in the world. But unlike any other world news service, it will offer the kind of analysis never before seen in the world arena. And the new global service will maintain the BBC's reputation for independence and objectivity.
The strength of the BBC World Service, radio and I'm sure now television, is that it is independent of government, that I don't dictate what you say or what you report. And I think that's the reason why it's trusted perhaps more than any other broadcasting system in the world.
But what's the importance for the audience in Asia of World Service television?
It is very important as we move away from the world of the past, obviously in transition, in danger of being dominated culturally as well as anything else by the single remaining superpower, by the United States. And I say that not in a pejorative sense, but in a very real sense of not having the world seen through one set of eyes. And we therefore need the alternative programming, and from my point of view, of course, the balanced programming that the BBC will bring out of its traditions of the World Service.
What's made today's event possible now is the arrival of satellite delivery systems like AsiaSat. This one satellite can deliver the signal to almost the whole of Asia and to half the people of the world. Yet within 2 years, World Service Television aims to have reached the other half. The BBC hopes to deliver just what it promises, a world service. Chris Irwin is the Chief Executive of WSTV.
Your Royal Highness, it's sometimes hard to believe that BBC World Service Television is barely 7 months old. It owes its rapid development to two things: the soundness of the idea on which it's based, and secondly, to the determination of the BBC to show that it can be as nimble as the rest of them when it comes to seizing commercial opportunities. A lot's already been said about the idea of World Service Television. The reputation of the World Service itself is our inspiration. But it's also worth emphasizing our credentials. We're a self-funding company, wholly owned by the BBC, but wholly dependent on our commercial wits for our survival. That's a marvelous spur to progress. It's surprising how fast one can move when survival is at stake. We've learned a lot these last few months, not least from our new partner, Hutchvision, and the Lee family. It was their skill, their determination to succeed, their dynamism that drew us to them in the first place. And I'd like to say to all our Hutchvision friends watching in Hong Kong and throughout Asia, how pleased and proud we are that you are our partners. We're going to broadcast to Asia together. Asia, the most populous of the world's continents. Asia's a cauldron of news, cultures, and enterprise. Asia, a continent with an unstoppable appetite for information, and that's important. For all of us in World Service Television believe that a better informed world makes for better international relations. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to my colleagues in World Service Television News as some of our top correspondents survey the role of Asia in the decade ahead. It's a survey that takes us right across the continent, from west to east, starting in a city at the center of the world stage, Moscow. We've chosen it as a place to begin because, as our diplomatic correspondent Mark Brain reports, the change there echoes eastward.
These are extraordinary days in world politics. Within just 3 years, the superpower conflict has ended across the globe, in Central America, in Southern Africa, in South Asia, and in Indochina. Soviet troops have left Afghanistan. War has ended in Namibia and Angola. A tidal wave of change has swept through the Far East. In Europe, the unthinkable has become a daily occurrence. Few had ever dreamed that the Berlin Wall would fall so soon, and with it, communist regimes across the continent. In the Middle East, violent force was deployed to remove Saddam Hussein's Iraq from Kuwait. The lesson in this revolutionary new world order beyond the Cold War, that there are rules that can no longer be broken with impunity. The key to this revolution lies here in Moscow, where the collapse of a communist superpower is freeing the diplomatic logjams of generations. The failure of the coup in August has pushed the accelerator of history to the floor. The last of the great empires of the pre-industrial age is breaking up, and new states are emerging in Asia. It is a process pregnant with hope and danger. Among the peoples and tribes of Central Asia, nationalisms and hatreds of empire have been in cold storage for 2/3 of a century. Will they now break the surface here as they have in Yugoslavia and spill over into China's Xinjiang and Tibet? Who is to command the new collection of states that was once the Soviet Union? It will not be Mr. Gorbachev, it will not be Mr. Yeltsin. If chaos ensues, it may not be anyone. Will communist rule end in peace in China? The world is in the grip of breathtaking change, change that will also transform the face of Asia.
The wealth of the Gulf, oil, vandalized and set on fire by President Saddam Hussein's army as it was driven out of Kuwait. The war dragged the conservative, cautious Arab Gulf states into the glare of world attention. And at a time of high emotion, crowds of ordinary people, even women, were out on the streets. Now the Gulf scene, on the surface at least, has returned to normal. The apparatus of consumerism and high tech conceals a society which is difficult for an outsider to penetrate. But the invasion of Kuwait showed that the Gulf cannot remain isolated from world events and threw into relief the need for reliable, unimpeded information. In the crisis, people were hungry for news.
In our country, specifically in Bahrain, we have opened up to the entire Western media and allowed broadcasts of other television reporting about this war. Brought home to the people the fact that they are not alone. And I think it was a nice and consoling feeling. But at the end of the day, it brought them the real action.
An Egyptian who's head of philosophy at Kuwait University thinks satellite television will have a big impact, even on people who visit the West often and know its culture well.
The problem is that they could make some kind of coexistence between living abroad in a certain way and living in their own country in a quite different way. Now the new factor would be that the West is coming to their own homes.
Some in the Arab world see the information explosion as a threat to their own culture and values. Others say that access to news and views from outside will allow people to decide for themselves what to accept and what to reject. In the long run, that can only be good. Information is vital if people are to understand each other better in a rapidly changing world.
India's burgeoning middle class is wiring up for satellite television as fast as possible. In every residential area, engineers are stringing wires from house to house to set up local cable networks transmitting international television. Competition between different cable operators is ferocious. It's a great business to be in because the cable operator pays nothing for the product. Everything seems haywire in their rudimentary control rooms, but they manage to get the signal into subscribers' homes. Dishes and all their parts are made in India, so they're comparatively cheap, and the government can't control them by banning imports. This firm estimates that within 2 years, 20 million Indians will be receiving BBC television by satellite. Families get together every evening to enjoy the latest craze in entertainment. Bombay films are threatened too. Scenes like this one would never be passed by India's censorious censors. Officials of the government-controlled Doordarshan television network refuse to talk about the challenge facing them. But they know all too well that their colleagues at All India Radio have failed to cope with the transistor revolution, which brought international radio to a vast audience. The Information Ministry is feverishly trying to devise ways of banning the viewing of international television. But in a country where the law is more honoured in the breach than the observance, that won't work. India will just have to radically reform its own television if it's to provide any challenge to what the government sees as this unwelcome invasion.
This is a city-state with the fastest changing skyline in Asia. It's a hard-headed community which unashamedly believes in making money. But there are tough decisions ahead as the countdown to Peking's 1997 takeover enters its final phase. Increasingly, the BBC Bureau in this British colony will be reporting on changes here and across the border on the Chinese mainland. Can Peking go on pursuing wide-ranging economic reforms while still keeping the lid on political developments? That's one of the fundamental questions we'll be trying to answer. Elsewhere in Asia, 2 wars that are winding down will demand attention. Firstly, Afghanistan, where the superpowers have agreed to cut all war supplies to their rival clients at the end of this year. Then there's Cambodia. It's travelling towards peace after 20 years of civil war, but these hopes could yet be ambushed. And can the world be sure that the Khmer Rouge will be restrained? Further east, in recent days, we've been reporting on the wind of change sweeping across the Mongolian steppe. Nearly all the Soviet military forces have now gone home, leaving their one-time Stalinist protégés tasting democracy for the first time. The area we cover in Asia, along with other BBC correspondents, is vast. But in the coming months, we'll be doing our utmost to bring you up-to-the-minute reports. Brian Barron, BBC News, Mongolia.
Asia, a continent which we hope will have its appetite for information at least in some degree satisfied by the arrival today of BBC World Service Television. It's just a few minutes now till the very first World News Bulletin of this service, and the moment has now arrived to ask Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal, to launch this new chapter in broadcasting by inaugurating BBC World Service Television in Asia, television for the world. Your Royal Highness.
Good afternoon here in London, and good evening to those of you watching and listening in Hong Kong. The world is hungry for information. It wants news. To me, the word news implies facts. But news comes in many forms, and all too often it is difficult for the audience to determine the truth of the pictures they see or the commentaries they hear. During the nearly 60 years of its existence, the BBC World Service on radio has built a worldwide reputation for the accuracy and impartiality of its news coverage. The testimonials we have heard from distinguished people in the last half hour bear witness to its stature. The translation of this service into television, therefore, is an occasion for celebration, and we can feel pride that this is a British achievement. We have a historical role, particularly through the Commonwealth, in fostering links with our friends abroad. The Commonwealth of Nations, united through similar ideals of partnership and cooperation, deserve a television news service upon which they can depend for the free exchange of impartial information and which highlights the shared ambitions and emotions of all members of the human race. As president of BAFTA, I am well aware of the important international role which British television already plays. We in this country are properly proud of the quality of the television services we enjoy at home. And every year at the British Academy Awards, we congratulate ourselves on what we have made. Their quality has meant that British television programmes have been sold successfully around the world for many years. But now, as the world gets smaller and communications improve, no television broadcaster can afford to stand still. The aim of BBC World Television Service is set up with Home Office approval earlier this year is to span the globe by 1993 with a self-funding television equivalent of BBC World Service Radio. Today, the first step is taken along that path as a result of the partnership formed by the BBC with Hutch Vision. Part of one of the great British Far Eastern trading companies operating from Hong Kong, with a strong, multi-ethnic, multidisciplinary team running their operation, Hutch Vision are able to offer access to AsiaSat-1, a communications satellite giving wide coverage of the Asian continent. The combination of the editorial and technical skills of the BBC with the commercial and financial resources of Hutch Vision Whampoa augurs well for a venture without government funding or access to support from the BBC licence fee. I would like to say to those watching in Hong Kong and other parts of Asia that none of what we are celebrating today would have been possible without the vision and enterprise of such a powerful Hong Kong company. In a few moments, Star Television will have a new channel, BBC World Service Television. If it can reach the standards of accuracy and impartiality of its news coverage that the BBC World Service on radio has achieved over the years, then we will have a service to be proud of. I wish it well.
The headlines from the BBC World Service. In Yugoslavia, a convoy of emergency aid is still trying to enter the besieged Croatian town of Vukovar, the scene of bitter clashes in recent weeks. The convoy finally arrived on the outskirts of the town last night after 3 days of failed attempts to get through because of heavy fighting. Commonwealth leaders are gathering in Zimbabwe for the heads of government meeting which gets underway on Wednesday.
So at 1 o'clock this afternoon, a new chapter in broadcasting was opened, with the first BBC World Service television news programme transmitted to Asia via Star TV and Asia's Satellite 1. From today, Asian viewers will be receiving the channel for 2 or 3 hours a day. But in a month's time, it expands to a 24-hour service, providing the whole of Asia with news and information programmes round the clock. Television for the world.